Welcome everybody to Tech Topics. My name is Andre with Hillsborough County Public Library. Um, Today we'll be going over cybersecurity basics, something that's becoming more and more important and prevalent to practice these days as more and more of our stuff is, transferred from a physical space into a digital space. So a lot of that information is personal and private. You want to keep it safe. We'll teach you some tips on how to do that today. On today's agenda, we'll be going over what is cybersecurity. We'll hopefully be going over some skill building, particularly how to recognize a secure website, what makes a strong password and what makes it memorable, how to recognize online scams and how to avoid them. And hopefully we'll be going over some other resources like password testers, online courses, stuff like that. First things first, we have some frequently used terms that we want to go over real quick. Obviously, if you've never heard of cybersecurity, you want to know what that is. So cybersecurity is basically the safeguarding of any digital information, physically or technologically. That includes, software and hardware, um, stuff that you can do specifically to your computer to secure it, stuff that you can do physically within the space that you're in with your computer that you can do to secure it. Today, we're going to go over some basic stuff regarding some software. Um, Not so much hardware in any particular sense, but yeah, today it's mostly going to be about browsers and just how to avoid scams. Next topic, mentioning the browser. Most of you might know this, but an internet browser is a piece of software that's used to explore the internet. So many of you have handled this before. That includes Google Chrome, Apple Safari, Mozilla's Firefox, Microsoft's Edge, Microsoft's Internet Explorer. There's even Opera. All of them follow the same baseline security features and fundamentals. So they're all relatively the same in function, but there are some key little web tools that kind of differentiate them. For this particular class, all you need to know is that a web browser helps you surf the internet and it helps you stay secure with certain tools. All right, so one of those tools is the next thing, a web certificate. Some of you might have seen some warnings about this. Whenever you go to a website, you get a flag that says, hey, this website isn't secure. It's particularly because it probably isn't giving you a good and valid web certificate. So what a web certificate does is validates a secure connection between your computer and the computer or server that's hosting the website. So if that website doesn't have a certificate that's valid and it tries to pass it to you, your browser is going to be like, hey, whoa, this isn't secure. Proceed at your own risk kind of situation. But yeah, all you need to know is that a web certificate helps secure it. We'll get into how you can tell that's the case in just a little bit. Next, we have malware. We're all hopefully aware of what a malware is. It's software built for exploiting a computer, whether intentionally or not. There is a history of malware being unintentionally made, but today we're going to go over specifically the stuff that's intentionally done so. That includes ransomware, which we've seen a lot in the news lately, or at least in the past couple of years. Malware that invades privacy, so just spying on you, keeping track of you, stuff like that that you wouldn't want happening, otherwise. Um, Malware specific to theft, for stealing like personal information or private data, information, documents, stuff like that, or even remote automation. So basically, there's malware that can hijack your computer and then turn it into a quote unquote zombie and force it to do things like become part of a botnet or even mine crypto. And then finally, we have passphrase, which is basically just a catchphrase to base a password on. We're going to see a lot of this, or specifically passphrase, towards the end of this program. Just bear with me. They're particularly useful, and that's why we go over them a lot. Why do we need to be concerned about safety when we're online? Like I said before, there's a lot of information that we're passing to our computers and to any number of websites that we use. A lot of that information is private or personal, and you just want to keep it secure. On the flip side of that, There are always going to be fraudsters, con men, criminals that are always going to try to access that information, whether you want it to happen or not. What you can do is try to stay secure and prevent that from happening. But believe it or not, information is probably one of the most valuable commodities these days. Very intangible, but I mean, you can do a lot with the information that you try to keep private. Our goal with cybersecurity in that case is to one, keep all of our personal and private information in the hands of those that we trust, primarily ourselves and anybody that you actually deem worthy enough to actually know that information. And two, to prevent any of the devices that we use from contracting any kind of malware that might also aid, criminals or fraudsters from being able to access that information or abuse that trust. One of the first things that we're going to learn how to do is how to make sure that the website that you're on is secure. Why do we need it to be secure? Once again, because we put personal information on there that we want to stay private. Um, and one of the easiest way to do that is to look at your browser. So whenever you're on a website, at the very top, there's this search bar that usually has like the actual name of the website and contains like the URL. Um, Up in that same bar to the top left, there's usually a little like lock icon or something. As you can see in this example to the bottom right on this slide, um, the correct positioning or correct visual that you should be seeing is this green one. It's not always going to be green on your actual browser, but what you should take away is that in the top left next to the URL, you should see this little lock icon with it actually locked. And then the prefix to your website's name should be HTTPS. All right. In the other example to the left, it being red, which obviously does not mean, secure. You would occasionally see a circle with an exclamation mark like this, or occasionally even like a lock symbol that's unlocked, and the prefix HTTP. So the difference between these two is that the one on the right with the actual lock to lock symbol is that it actually has a web certificate that is valid. And that web certificate is helping you create a secure connection between your computer and the server that the website's being hosted on. It basically makes this tunnel called an SSL tunnel, and it connects you to the server, and it makes it safe, and it encrypts the data that's being passed between the two of you. Um, if your website does not have that lock or that S in that prefix, it is not secure. You probably don't want to share any information on there because anything that passes over it is going to be out in bare. It's going to be exposed. It's not going to be encrypted. It's just data that's free flowing through from one side to the other. Remember, it's going to have that lock and then HTTPS. A really good way to remember it is that S at the very end of HTTPS literally means secure. All right. So one of the reasons why we want to make sure that our websites are secure is because we use a lot of personal accounts. The reason why anybody would want to create a personal account is usually because you want to use the web utilities that are on that website. So think of like YouTube, you create an account so you can watch videos or upload videos. You create a Google Drive so you can store documents there, so you can share documents. You create an email account because you want to send information back and forth between individuals or share things with them. Um, you want those websites to be secure because you're also passing a lot of information that's private to yourself, but also may also include other individuals' private information as well. You also may only want to make sure that it's only accessible to yourself. That's particular to a lot of cloud drives. So like if you're storing information on Google Drive, you might want to only just keep it to yourself. So you set everything to private. That way it's secure for yourself. Along with your browser being secure and going to only secure websites, you want to make sure that any accounts that you do make on these websites also have a strong password. You're going to have to take a much more active role when it comes to cybersecurity this way. But I mean, a strong password, just like the slide says, is one that's hard to guess. That's going to prevent people from trying to actually get into your account using brute force or even dictionary attacks, which I might briefly go over in just a sec. How strong is my password? So for this example, I used a password tester. Basically, it's a website that you can go to where you can just type in random passwords just to see whether or not they're up to snuff. Based off of the actual password that you supply it. it'll give you back kind of like a grading of how secure it is, how long it would take for like an individual that is trying to hack your account, how long it would actually take them to actually get access to it based off of that password. So in this first example, I typed in apples, just a plain text password, APPLES, 6 letters, not very diverse or complicated. As you can see on the website, it says that if anybody tried to hack this account using actual modern hardware and software to do so, it would be cracked instantly. So it's a good reminder not to leave your passwords in a very simple means or simple form. Plain text like this is just kind of it's not advised. Comparatively, we kind of made up our own password. As you can see, it's a HCPLC T35 plus sign ER exclamation point. It's about twice the length as apples, and it's a little more convoluted in what kind of characters that we've created or we've used for it. Obviously, we used uppercase and lowercase letters, numbers, and special symbols. According to the website that we used for the password tester, it says that this password would take likely 200 million years to crack. So something to bear in mind with your password is that you want as much complexity as possible for that specific website, and we'll get into the reasons why. But complexity and length is always going to be your best friend when it comes to making a password. Reiterating, how do you create a password and how do you make it strong and secure? Rules of thumb: use numbers, uppercase and lowercase letters, and any special characters and symbols that you can. The example to the right there, it even mentions that you should use at least 8 characters. Some websites vary. Some require 8 or more characters in a password. Some specify that you need uppercase and lowercase letters, numbers, stuff like that. This particular example excludes special symbols. You'll occasionally run into websites that do that, but even then, just try to make your password as complex as possible using the means that you have. All right, some quick tips for your passwords. Don't use common words like password. As we saw with the example with apples, it's not going to end well. If someone's actually trying to crack your password, they can use methods called a brute force method, where they basically just keep supplying characters into the password to see whether or not it will crack it eventually. It takes a very long time, but if somebody's actually going through with the effort to do so, they'll probably have the time to do so. So yeah, don't use common words. Don't include personal information because a lot of this stuff can actually be looked up online. Stuff like your first and last name, your birth dates, your whatever street addresses you lived on. A lot of that is public information. You don't want to use that as the basis of your password because it can cause a lot of issues. If they find one bit of information about yourself and it helps unlock that password, who knows what else they can find out about you. Don't use the same password on multiple accounts also. That's also a situation where if they find one password that works with a specific email that you have, which occasionally can be accessible online, they'll probably be able to try and use that same set of credentials, password and email, on other accounts elsewhere. So if you're using if you're using the same password for multiple accounts, it's only going to end badly if they just keep using those same bits of credentials over and over again. Um, Also, don't share with others. Keep your passwords private, unless there's someone that you very specifically trust. Don't share your passwords. Some things to do, keep in mind when you make your passwords, are make them longer and use a variety of characters. Like the example showed before, 8 characters is fine. A lot of cybersecurity experts say maybe 12 to 13 is probably the perfect amount of characters. At that point, it more or less becomes almost impossible for a computer or software to crack it unless they're using something that's probably costly to the actual criminal themselves. So yeah, just try to use longer passwords and a variety of characters. And the easiest way to do that is with our next tip, which is use short phrases or passphrases that are easier to remember to create your password. So the example below that is cows help make cheese. As you can see, that's already a mouthful to say. That by itself is something like 17 characters. But if you wanted to, you can also substitute a number of those characters with other characters to make it more complex. We'll look at that in the next slide. As an example, cows help make cheese is the passphrase that we decided to make a password off of. But as you can see in the table below, we substituted a number of the characters with other characters. So where there might be a O, we supplied a zero. We also randomly capitalized some of the other characters like this H here. We substituted some of the other characters like E with 3, S with 5, A with an at symbol. Um, Substituting things like this helps create a very complex password. It helps it make the password less capable of being cracked by one, brute force, just like I was mentioning before, and two, by dictionary attacks, which are a very specific type of cracking where basically a hacker uses a list of supplied words to try and crack your password. Um, so yeah, if you have trouble remembering a password, try to use a passphrase, and then if you use that passphrase, try to substitute some of those letters with or some of those characters with other characters that might look visually the same. Keeping track of passwords. There are a number of methods that you can do so, and we're kind of going to go over a couple. Um, Starting with the least secure, which is a notebook. I know a lot of older people, including my parents, use a notebook to keep track of their passwords. It's not the most secure way to do it, but I mean, if you can't recall it off the top of your head, it's a fine way of doing it. It's just you got to take some precautions. Make sure that you keep it in a trusted and safe place. Um, just make sure that the physical copy doesn't get damaged either. Because I mean, if you damage the book or damage the notebook or lose it or something like that, you're not going to have access to those accounts either way either. Least secure, it is manageable, but just make sure that you're safe with it. The next one is a password manager software. Um, this is the next most secure. It's not entirely foolproof because you can still you can still run into some issues with it, but it's similar to a notebook but digital. Basically, you have a vault of passwords that you have accessible to yourself, and it's all locked by a master password. And basically, whenever you go to a website and try to log in, the software kicks in, asks you for the master password, and once that actually gets validated, it passes the credentials or the appropriate credentials to the website and helps you log in from there. Easiest thing to do, just because you only really need to remember one master password, but once again, it's not entirely foolproof. There are some issues with some password manager softwares. You might have run into a couple of them. These include Apple's Keychain, 1Password, and KeePass. And finally, to keep track of passwords, we're going to mention passphrases again. Um, they're possibly the most secure way to make a password, and you can also personalize them. If you have some kind of weird mnemonic associated with a website, you can base a passphrase based off of that. And then basically, you'll have a one-to-one relationship between your password and the passphrase. And then, yeah, should make things a little easier to remember. Aside from passwords, which you have to take a much more active role in creating an active and strong password, and the more passive activity of looking to see whether or not your website is secure. Um, Online fraud and scams require you to be very offensive and defensive about how your security is. One of the main ways that fraudsters and criminals try to access your information is by social engineering. For those that don't know, social engineering is basically where an individual tries to pretend to be somebody that you may or may not know in order to gain your trust. And once they actually gain that trust, they try to access your personal information to abuse later in the future. It's a very common and old con man trick. It's just, this is the current day flavor of it. That said, phishing is kind of more or less a specific version of social engineering. Social engineering also just involves includes physical interactions. Phishing would be more specific to digital and phone interactions. You might receive a fake email or a fake text or a, a spoofed phone call saying that someone is someone that you should trust and they're asking for your information. Basically, what they're doing is they're trying to quote unquote fish for that information so that they can abuse the information later down the line. This includes fake websites, fake links, fake emails, fake texts, stuff that's generally disguised in a way to make you think that it's real, but it's not. It's a scam. How can you keep yourself safe from these fraudsters? Some quick tips. Have you heard of the person or organization that you're receiving the message from? If you get an email or a text or a phone call, are they someone that some major corporation or something that you can do a little research on to see if this is, whether or not you can verify? Um, that's always important just to make sure that you're actually passing along information to people that you trust or actually are trustworthy. Um, Likewise, you want to actually make sure that you're actively taking a role in pursuing those individuals that may or may not be trustworthy. Right. Can you tell who the email message is from? A lot of the times when you get a scam email, you might not recognize the email because it's not something that's usually used by a corporation or an individual that you would trust normally. So remain skeptical. Does the email have typos or mistakes? Usually, if it's coming from a corporation, it shouldn't have typos. If there are, it might not be someone that's you know, on the up and up. They might have been rushing through the email document to send out as many as possible and, went over a couple typos. Are they asking you for information? Information usually doesn't get asked for over an email or a text or a phone call. Um, a lot of the times you might actually just get like a piece of mail, like physical mail, requiring that information. But yeah, if it's just an email or a text or a phone call, that remain skeptical. And are they trying to rush you into a quick action? If they're asking you for information, are they trying to tell you that there's only so much time before your account gets expired or something like that? It, it's it's a mind game, and you really should, take a step back, take a breath, and then reassess the situation. And is it too good to be true? If they're offering something in exchange for this information, and it's something like money or a some other uh, some other commodity in exchange, probably be skeptical about that. In light of that, think of some other examples that you might have experienced of any time that you might have encountered a fraud or scam get sent to you either by email or text. I'm sure plenty of us have gotten some bot messages over the phone or over text or email and just, you know, looked at it and slowly kind of put it to spam or just deleted it just to kind of get it away from us. Um, but yeah, think of it. How often this happens, how many people are actively trying to commit this kind of fraud or scam to get away with what is essentially information theft. Some quick examples. Have you heard of this person or organization? Here we have an example of the website that AT&T has made. Um, Obviously, if you got a message from AT&T with a link to it, you might not want to click the link directly, but you might want to go to their website via a internet browser. Um, Use a search engine like Google or something to look up their website and see whether or not the information that's in the email is verifiable on their website. Um, if it's somebody that you've heard of or a person or organization like that, just do a little bit of research first and maybe don't click any links that are specifically sent via email or text. Yeah. um, Verify that this website's the real deal. um, Hopefully it's safe from there. In this next example, we received an email from PayPal, and it's addressing an account being locked. In this situation, can you tell who the message is from? In the body of the email, it tells you that your PayPal account is temporarily restricted. At the bottom here, there's a button that says PayPal also. However, if you look at the email, it says something like googlegroups.com. Commonly, if you're getting an email from a corporation or just kind of any like major organization, they're not going to use a third-party service for their emails. They're usually going to host their own email server, in which case the email is going to come from some kind of email address that's either going to be like if it was PayPal, it was going to probably be paypal.com at paypal.com or at mail.paypal.com. Considering that the email address here does not match the organization or corporation that's sending the email, allegedly, um, it's something to remain skeptical about. Likewise, are they asking you for your information? The email claims that they tried to reach out to whoever got this email, saying that they requested some information and didn't receive it in time, so the account is locked. Because of that information, or that request for information, um, it the scammy the email is a little scammy. It does appear that they're trying to rush you. They're trying to leverage your accessibility to your account, um, by threatening, action for your inaction. But yeah, because of the previous notes, you can tell who isn't actually selling the email. If they're asking you for information like this, I'd remain skeptical as well. And does the email have mistakes? As you can see, the word account has been misspelled maybe 5 or 6 times in here. They even misspelled suspicious. It says suspicious, and I think even confirming is also misspelled somewhere in there. Um, but yeah, as mentioned before, if a corporation or an organization is sending you an email like this, they usually have proofreaders or a copywriter that would assess this before being sent out. Um, if there's typos, just say no. All right, in this next example, we've received an email from Cash App. As you can see right off the bat, similar situation to the previous example. We're receiving an email from, or a message from, allegedly Cash App, but the email itself does not match the corporation or organization that it's allegedly being sent from. I think it says somewhere along the lines of PQG dot promo daily. That does not appear to be associated with Cash App at all. So I would avoid any kind of email that came up like this. However, in this example, we're going to be going over, are they trying to rush you into a quick action? Um, Basically, the email is saying that if you don't take action now, you're going to lose the opportunity to get some kind of monetary reward. Once again, they're trying to leverage time against you, and if uh, if that comes up in an email, I would say avoid this. Put it to spam, delete it. Just don't click on anything besides the trash can. And is it too good to be true? Just like before, they're trying to leverage some kind of monetary value and time against you. In this email, they're specifically saying that if you sign up in time, you can get $750 for free. That sounds like a dream. But yeah, in that situation, it does seem a little too good to be true, especially in exchange for some kind of information. So in that situation, just say no, click the trash can, move on, move it to spam, move on. Some do's and don'ts to avoid scams. On the don'ts, don't give any personal information. Same as your password, don't base anything off of your personal information because a lot of that can be sourced from online. But if they have access to that information, whether through a password or using a search engine or even you passing it to them mistakenly, they can use that in any number of ways. Yeah, it's just not safe. The next tip is don't reply or engage with the fraudster. If you do suspect something being sent from a fraudster, whether it's email, text, or phone calls, don't bother replying to them. Um, any amount of time that you spend communicating with them, they're going to try to leverage that pressure onto you so that they can try and get anything from you. Just try to avoid it. If you suspect something as being a scam, just avoid it. Don't click any links or buttons. Previously mentioned, if you get an email or a text and there's a link on it or like a little button there, do not press it. If there's a high likelihood that once you press it, it can engage a program to download malware to your system or something like that. Try to steal your credentials. Try to hijack your internet session. Um, Just if you suspect it of being scammy, uh, do not click anything. Just move it to trash or move it to spam. And this also goes hand in hand with do not click any links or buttons. Do not download any files or attachments. Same situation. If you download any of those things, they can they can also lead to malware. They can also lead to hijacking of your computer or your internet session, which is both are very, very bad. For some do's, do be skeptical. Constantly be questioning whether or not any of the emails or texts that you receive from people that you don't know, whether or not they fit into any of these characteristics. If they do, do a little more research. Like the next tip says, read emails very carefully and look up information on your own. Um, if you suspect it from coming from an actual reputable organization or corporation or a close friend or something like that, just double check. Yeah, go to the official website instead of clicking on the link in the email. Check to see if the website has any verifiable information on it. Look at the email where it's being sent from. Any number of these things, you know, it helps you go towards being very careful and staying active with your own cybersecurity and maintaining that your information, personal and private, stays personal and private. It's almost time for a Q&A. If you have any more questions, type them in the chat box. We'll get to them in just a second. Um, in the meantime, we're going to go over some additional resources. Our first resource is, it's a little fun to say. It's haveibeenpwned.com. So with cybersecurity being a bigger issue these days, maybe about a decade ago, this guy started this website called Have I Been Pwned. It's rapidly become one of the more successful means of checking whether or not you've been hacked. Um, but basically, the website is a archive of any data breach that has ever occurred within like the past 10 years. Basically, anytime that a major corporation or organization gets their database or servers hacked, any information regarding emails or passwords and stuff like that that has been sourced and found online after some criminal has dumped it online for others to use, this guy archives it and puts it on his website. Not so much passwords, but specifically like email addresses. So if you've been involved in any of these data breaches, you can just type in your email address and see where you've been victimized, more or less. Um, it's a good place to start to figure out whether or not you need to change emails, whether or not you should change passwords, stuff like that. It's a really good way to double check your cybersecurity in the long run. Next one is a password tester. Mentioned this previously before. The one that we use for the program is by security.org, but there's a number of them online. There's even a couple that are actually supplied by universities around the country. All follow the same basic idea. You just type in a password and see whether or not it's how good of a password it is. I would caution to say that any password that you do type into it, you probably don't want to use, at least immediately. I would say it's a good place to start testing or, you know, creating the foundation of your future password. So if you have a passphrase that you want to test out, you just type in the passphrase, and then later down the line, you can do this character substitution just to make sure that your password is complex and long, and then it's very, very, very difficult to hack. But yeah, password testers are great. Really good way to reassure that you're creating something that's worthwhile. All right, and then finally is a universal class. Um, Universal Class is one of the e-resources that we have here at the library. With your library card, you can log in and access a number of online classes related to IT and computer science. This one specifically here that we have on the slide, Securing Your Data and Privacy, is a really good place to start at your own pace. And once you complete it, if you actually do take the certificate version of the class, you will receive CEUs, continuing education units. So it's a really good way to, bolster your resume while also, learning more about cybersecurity yourself. If you guys wanted to contact us, you guys can always contact us at hcplc.org/contact or call 813 273-3652. Yeah, if you guys have any questions, please submit them to the chat and we'll get around to answering them as many as we can.
So keep those questions coming in and I will help read them off as we get them. We did get one question already that asks if we have any advice to prevent bad actors or baddies from crashing our Zoom or Team or GoToWebinar webinars. How do we keep the baddies out from that kind of a discussion where it might be disruptive?
Okay. So are you asking about individuals that are just crashing, like somehow gaining access to a meeting and then, disrupting and then leaving?
It sounds like that's the case. I know there are some services where there's no registration required. You can just click a join link and pop in, and you don't have to sign up for it, so to speak. So probably the best tip that we can give for avoiding that kind of a disruptive thing is to, when you create a webinar or an event like that, is to require a registration for someone to join it. So even if it's as simple as typing in a name and an email address, usually having that one step would keep somebody who's just goofing around looking to be disruptive to keep them from joining it, because then they would have to create an email address to get the link, and that one extra step might be just what's needed just for somebody who's just goofing off.
Yeah. Another means of doing so would probably be two-factor authentication, if that's an option for some of these. I know Zoom does something to that effect. It's been a while since I've used Zoom, but yeah. As far as I know, you would need a one invite to actually access it, and then two, you usually do need to like log into your own personal account to access the meeting. As far as others, I'm not entirely sure. Like you said, try to, if there's an option to, uh, limit how many guest accounts can actually join your meetings. If they don't have access to a guest account, they can't maintain that anonymity. And like Lisa was saying, they might have to access like an email account that they won't want to be out there. It might validate some kind of or not validate, but it might identify them as some kind of ill actor, ne'er do well. Yeah. Otherwise,
I think if you're setting it up where it's something that's meant to be kept private, where it's amongst family members or some other close group where you really don't want anybody in there that you don't actually legitimately know, you might consider setting the event up as a private event where you can only get into it if they receive the email invitation from you. So if it's really something where you need to protect somebody's anonymity, or if we have children that are logging into it, you might consider locking it down to be a private event and have it be invite only.
yeah, that's a good point. Because at that point, you should have the curated list also of who you're sending it out to. There shouldn't be any strangers on that list.
Yeah. So the other question is if they will receive a recording of this presentation, and I have good news. All of our virtual programs are recorded and posted to the library's YouTube channel. I will add a link to that in the chat here while you're typing any other questions that might come in. But yes, this program will be posted on the library's YouTube channel, usually within a week or two of the live event. And if you check the URL at the bottom of the screen here on the contact page where it says hcplc.org/tech topics, that is a shortcut that takes you directly to the general tech topics page on the library's website. And that will have links about all of our tech topics programs, whether it's tech topics specifically or other library technology programs. So if you click on that, that has our upcoming programs and events that are tech related, whether that's online or in branches, and it has the links to our tech topics playlist on YouTube.
Any more questions?
Andre, I think that means that you did a very thorough job and their questions
All right.
were already answered before we even got to the Q&A.
All right, nice. All
I'll
right.
give you just another moment to, if anyone else has a question, to type that in, but otherwise you feel free to wrap it up, Andre.
All right. Well, thank you guys for showing up. If you guys want to join us for our next tech topic, it is going to be on desktop cutting machines, December 5th at 6 p.m. Thank you guys for showing up. And yeah, if you guys have any questions, you can always feel free to contact us. Thank you.
Have a good evening, everyone. Thank you.